Hi, I'm Danny Mylink. That's back behind the camera. It's May 13th, 2024. We're in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we're interviewing Mr. Jeffrey Green. All right, so in our pre-interview, you talked about your, I think it was your grandfather immigrating from Russia. Could you just begin there and start and talk about kind of?
My grandfather on my dad's side, Abraham Green, immigrated from Russia. When I don't know what age he was. He never really talked about it much. He was studying to be a rabbi there, so he must have been close to 20 or 20-ish. And something happened, and he just decided to leave and sort of not be as religious anymore, and he came to America. And later on, we didn't talk about my grandmother. She came later on, her family. And he ended up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and opened a furniture store and in West Dallas, 73rd and Greenfield. And he bought another piece of real estate there, and they opened another store. And then my dad and his brother and uncle got involved in the furniture business. So he was a character. You know, he wasn't. He lived in. I don't remember if he ever owned a home. Maybe he did. Maybe they were in West Dallas for a while, where the furniture store was. But when I grew up, he was on 52nd and Center Street in a duplex, and with my grandmother, and the kids were all out of the house. And I used to go there like every Friday night or something for dinner. And he liked to watch. He also liked to watch boxing. I think he did that as a child too, or something. And so he was a pretty simple guy. Take walks, didn't work out, wasn't large. I think it's one of his pictures over there. And so.
And you talked about working at the furniture store as a kid?
Yeah, when I was in high school, and I would work in the warehouse for the furniture store. It was 81st and Greenfield, and it was a lot of fun with, it was 3 working class people, and they did furniture finishing and furniture deliveries, and it was a lot of fun. I got to do it, covered and cleaned up the warehouse when they took me out. So it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. And it was a different type of person you normally would associate with, but they're all really nice people. So, so that was like, I usually do that in the summers. That was sort of my summer job.
And you have some pictures here, but could you talk about a little bit about earlier than that, like kind of early childhood?
I was sort of looking. I grew up in Wauwatosa, and my parents built a home, and I was an only child, and there were no kids on our street, so it was just like strange. So you had some friends from the elementary school. McKinley School was maybe 3 blocks away, and he was more of a studious guy, and because you didn't really have people to play with all the time, and the friends you did have, well, we used to play, I used to play guns, and it was a big thing, or wiffle ball, and I wasn't the greatest athlete in the world, but but McKinley it was a nice school. It was a nice teachers, nice group of people. The world changed a bit, but and then eventually we moved on. My parents decided to move back towards the city. It wasn't, being a Jewish fella in Wauwatosa you were unique. There weren't too many of us, so I guess they wanted me to maybe get a little closer to my roots and meet some Jewish people and Jewish kids, and so we moved to, I think it was 52nd Street in Nash, and they rented a duplex, and I did make nice friends. I went to John Marshall High School, and then eventually my parents moved on to another duplex, and my grandparents were still alive, and my grandmother died, I think age 73 of lung cancer, but then that was like on 42nd off of Roosevelt Boulevard. So they moved further into the city, which was kind of interesting. Now people are moving out of the city perhaps, but so that's sort of how, I went to school at John Marshall, and that was the second year the school was That was the second graduating class, so that would have been 1960, I can't remember, 65, I think. Or maybe it was even before that. I think I graduated in 65, but it was a good experience, and I didn't play sports. I had some good friends. They were on a golf team and learned how to play bridge, and that was one of our pastimes. Had a lot of laughs. And the synagogue we went to was Beth Eleanor Tom. It was on Sherman Boulevard, so that was a big thing in our religion, was the being bar mitzvah. And that's where his bar mitzvah, and my parents would go there on the holidays, and my grandparents would go on the holidays, and it was we had an interesting, fascinating rabbi. He wasn't a character. He was like serious, and he was like sort of a dominating personality. He had a deep voice, but it was a nice experience. And you'd go to, if you're Jewish, you go to Hebrew school if you want. At the time, so did that, and that was like after school. So there really wasn't much time to be in your own neighborhood or something, or playing with people or something. That was like a couple of days a week, but we didn't talk about that previously on the interview. But so that's sort of how you grew up. I don't know if that answers that question until you went to college.
Yeah.
The pictures, I mean, I found some pictures when I was at McKinley School, and I mean, there were a nice group of people. And then eventually, it's funny, when you go to high school, I don't know, there weren't many pictures. And I was sort of a shy guy, so I didn't date a lot. I did go to the last two proms, I think. And then when I was a senior, after I think I know before I went to school, I dated a bit before I went to college or something. It was kind of fun. It was something different. You wish you were more of not a shy guy, you know, but we're sort of, we did at the time, my friends, you know, there were no drugs, and we really didn't drink until you got to school. Then you went to, you could still drink beer at age 18, so that was a lot of fun. So, went to a fraternity. I got in my second year, and the funny thing is I was thinking, you sort of lost some of your friends that you were closer to from high school, but then I picked up with some friends that I went to grade school with, of all things. And they were in a fraternity already, and it was called Lambda Chi Alpha. I found a picture of that, and that was interesting. It was Lambda Chi Alpha, which was not, it was, the cross and the crescent was the symbol, and here I'm this Jewish guy, but there was another Jewish guy in the fraternity, and you know, I've always sort of learned, because growing up in Wauwatosa, just to get along with everybody, and it's no big deal what your religion is or what your background is or something. You try to treat everyone the same or something. Not everybody felt that way, you know, but and they still don't, unfortunately, but that's how I did. So I never emphasized my religion, and as you got older, you sort of got away from it more. And then I got married when I was 1970. But my dates are terrible. So I think I was married for 23 years the first time. I think in 1970 I was I think it was age 23. So it was 1970. And my wife was Jewish. We had 3 children, and her family was. And then I was practicing law. I went to law school, and graduated from UW, and it was during the Vietnam War, which is kind of a tough time to be in school. I spent my first year, I didn't know what to do with myself. I got good grades. I majored in philosophy because it was an easy major. And in retrospect, maybe I should have went to business school. But I just sort of felt common sense would work out in the long run and see what happens. But I went to law school. I thought that would be at least a decent background. And the first year of law school was real hard to get acclimated with and it was very competitive nature of school. And but it was hard at Madison with all that's going on campus, and because, I don't know, it was hard for me to adjust to that atmosphere. You sort of wanted to break away and have a little bit more fun, and everyone was so serious about studying. So then the second year we moved, my wife got a teaching job, and she was, think we were married yet, if I remember correctly, but we moved to back to Milwaukee, and I went to Marquette. And for some reason, it was a little bit more regimented, and I just was able to study better and get ahead and do real well in school. It was hard to break into it. It was sort of cliquey. You know, the cliques sort of are established the first year of school. So you didn't have too many friends other than maybe the people that sat around you or something. And but when you're already in a relationship, it didn't make much difference. And I think I had mentioned previously, even going when we moved from Wauwatosa to Milwaukee, there too we moved in the middle of 9th grade, and cliques had already established with friends, so it was a little hard to break in or get acclimated. But somehow I did. You know, you made some friends in a different group, and you left some behind. And then, like I say, when I went to Madison and you joined the fraternity, you gained some back again. Fraternity was a good experience. I was a president for 1 year, and it was a good experience at what not to do and what to do. Sort of like running a business or with a school. And if you look back, there's decisions you helped do which maybe weren't too well received. It wasn't a good idea, and and you didn't. Some people liked it, some didn't. It wasn't a growing fraternity. It was fun, you know. We had a great cook, and it was a very nice house to live in. But it wasn't. We weren't growing. So the National, Lambda Chi Alpha, which is a big fraternity, wasn't too happy with our campus. So they sort of wanted somebody else to be president. So I moved on, and I wasn't happy about it. But eventually it folded. It just couldn't get enough people to go. So it wasn't that if it was my fault or something, but we tried. But it was a great experience, and you still look back on it. But on the other hand, it sort of was interesting for helping in business a bit, because here I got into a leadership position and sort of learned some do's and don'ts, you know, and that was kind of interesting. And how to get, you know, getting along with people or not getting along with people, and whether there was, I never really noticed an anti-Semitic nature to it or something. Maybe there was some scuttlebutt or something. I mean, maybe in retrospect it didn't hit it off with everybody. You couldn't tell. But that's another lesson in life, you know. And but it was a good experience. In the final year, I think I was in an apartment and with some other friends I had made. So, so that sort of brought me to Milwaukee. I think you wanted to deal a little with Milwaukee too. And so when I went to law school, I clerked. I got a job as an intern in the DA's office. Not a clerk, and that was an interesting experience in the Milwaukee County DA's office. And for one summer, and then eventually I got a job with a small foreclosure law firm at the time, and I really didn't think I wanted to go to a larger law firm, and I didn't really maybe have the grades or the connections, or didn't think I have. And but then with the experience with the first law firm, they weren't, at the end of the first year I didn't get a raise, and that was kind of upsetting, and I didn't really get a good reason why. I think it was a smaller firm, and I think maybe, I don't know, I'll never figure that one out. Had a good relationship with them. I liked the two partners, but moved on to a medium-sized firm. And then you began to see the egos of attorneys and the animosity, whatever. That was a fascinating experience. But I learned a lot. We did a lot of real estate law. You're asking, did you have any? And so we had some big clients at the firm, and I wasn't wild about the firm and wild about my pay. And I had friends selling roofing and siding, making 4 times what I was making as a young attorney. But you persevered and met some people, and I think our biggest client was the Kohl family, who developed a lot of real estate in Milwaukee. They developed Northridge, Southridge, and so I met Sidney Kohl and had to go to him for signatures and things, and some problems. Normally, one of the other partners he would go to or something. He was a hard guy to do business with, but very successful. So you're trying to think of famous people I might have met, but you just dealt with a lot of bankers and things, and you dealt with a lot of top lawyers in the city, which was kind of interesting. When you're first getting started, I have a relationship with some of them. There was a fellow named Alan Rieselbach or Alan Markovitz, were very well known in the real estate field. So you got to do business with them, and most of them passed on, or that's years ago. So I did that for 7 years, and then I had left once during it. I didn't mention this. After I went to the medium-sized firm, I always, I don't know, just whatever it was, I can't remember why I wasn't happy during the first year. I was happy, and so I met a fellow. I began to get interested in investing in real estate. So I met a fellow who had a firm and decided to try being a commercial investment broker. And that lasted 10 months or so, which is a hard way to make a living. We made some deals, but once you already have debts and monthly expenses, and at the time we had a house in Bayside, and so eventually, one day out of the clear blue, and we were about ready to put our house up for sale because I wasn't doing that well selling real estate. I got a call from that medium firm, do you want to come back? And they offered me a raise, and so I came back and I stayed with them then, must have been 5-6 years. And then eventually I left and bought a title company in Racine, called Knightberry Title. I always had that entrepreneurial instinct, I guess. So then we moved to Racine, and I think we had all our kids at the time. And so I lived there a number of years, and it was an older firm, and the older family had it for 50 years, and they stayed on a while, and so you learned, basically you didn't really know much about running a business, but they always advised me to be an overseer and not get tied up on as much as you can in the day-to-day stuff, so you could sort of oversee what was going on. It had 12 employees, I think, at the time. And title insurance was just in its infancy. Computers weren't really out yet. There were still carbon paper. It was just, then big word processors came into business, and we tried to stay advanced into that, and better phone systems, and then it wasn't, it took a while for computers and technology to catch up with it. And Racine was like a smaller town. It was easy to get around. It wasn't what I call a growing town by any means. I think it used to be more in some manufacturing which left the city, and it never became a service economy as much as it could have, which is difficult. In a lot of cities that's happened to. But so eventually, and the people weren't an aggressive, I didn't feel they were an aggressive, growth-oriented mentality. And I guess I sort of was, and I felt it was holding me back. So I thought we should move back to Milwaukee, which too isn't, this is not the growth capital of the world, but it was, better than Racine. There'd be more opportunities, and so by that time I think I had met my second wife, and so we moved to Milwaukee, and she was still commuting. She was working for the Johnson family. And I did meet Sam Johnson, who was the patriarch of the Johnson family, and he took us out to dinner with my wife. She was in charge of their restaurants, and then he passed on pancreatic cancer, I think, and his children didn't want anything to do with the restaurant business, so then she had to sell them off, and then we found an opportunity in Milwaukee to have our own restaurant, so we tried that for 11 years. While I was still running the company and going back and forth to Racine. Then eventually we moved up here, and Beck's father, Craig, joined us in 1996. And when we were still in Racine, he had moved to Racine too. And he was married at the time and had Beck's older brother, Tyler, and Jack, I think. And then we had made our first acquisition in Port Washington. It was a friend of mine in the title business, and he wanted to sell, and we had the opportunity to do it, and I put the deal together, and Craig was gonna move up to Thiensville to manage that, and then things didn't work out too well in the marriage, I guess, and whatever, so he ended up coming back to downtown Milwaukee, and I think he was in an apartment for a while, and then he met his present wife, Beck's mother, and but we started once he, actually I think probably if he looks back and I look back, probably when he came back to Milwaukee and got through, it was a tough time for his life, and that's sort of when we started to grow more and got more acquisition oriented, and Craig became versed in all aspects of the business, and so then we just proceeded to grow the business. In fact, as a sidelight, I was thinking, I think one of the parts of the interview you wanted to know about Milwaukee, or, so I grew up in it was a nice community, Wauwatosa. I mean, it had smaller stores, and it was pretty, you'd call it white, it was probably more white collar at the time, or something like that. I mean, it was a nice atmosphere. I mean, nice people, and it was not a mixed variety of people. It was and then eventually, as the city changes, you had the Mayfair Shopping Center was built, and that was a big thing, way out on Highway 100. I mean, that was like the start of the shopping centers and stuff. And that started to change things where the stores were, and there used to be a Kohl's food store where we lived in Wauwatosa when I grew up, and then that sort of put the local guy, Drager's food store, out of bit. Eventually they didn't make it. It was the start of the change of bigger stores getting involved and changing, and it was nicer with the smaller places. To me it was, the local hardware store, the local gas station where actually somebody did service on your car, and as you saw those changes in life, and then we used to, my mother and I, my father worked like 6 days a week and 3 nights, so we would take the bus and go to a department store, Schuster's, that was on 3rd Street, or Gimbel's downtown, and just have lunch there or something, or shop or something, and that's all changed. There are, even Mayfair now is changing a bit, but it's still there, Mayfair, so, but, Boston store didn't make it, and just too bad, and Gimbel's didn't make it downtown Milwaukee, and Schuster's didn't, so life has changed. So 3rd Street was a little bit more, I don't know, it was just a busy, nice street for people. Gradually the area changed, and it didn't attract the right types of people, I guess, and that type of business is a harder business to keep going. So I saw those changes in the city, and and where you grew up to, and some of the schools now have changed, areas changed. We drove out to Pewaukee on Saturday, I think, and areas of the city have changed, not for the better, and but the city has grown in spots, and try to get by that, and just try to. It's a challenge. It's a big challenge, to say the least. So that's, Racine was. I mean, the downtown was, and you wanted to, was sort of the focal point of the city at the time, and they had one shopping center was built, and eventually that didn't make it either. I forgot what it was even called, Racine Mall. I think they're talking about putting a Woodman's food store there. But some of the changes were, just hard to accept a bit, and then but that's just life, I guess. Now it's so those are some of the things I've seen, or some of the places we've lived in. We live in Whitefish Bay now, and that's a very nice community, and has a good school system, which attracts a lot of people. It's gotten pricier, but that's because people want to live where there's a good school system, so, which is kind of nice. Or Beck's in Franklin, and those are the areas that have sort of grown on the outskirts or something. And you avoid some of the problems of the city, or some of the taxes, and sometimes. So I forgot where we're at right now with the conversation, but But eventually when he came back here, and Craig and I have just continued to grow the business, and throughout the state of Wisconsin, Minnesota, Upper Peninsula, Michigan, some offices in Florida, an office in Houston. And we've had some that worked out well, quite a few have worked out well, a couple haven't worked out so well. Somehow you just gotta deal with it. You're not gonna hit everyone well, and a lot of joint ventures, the business has changed. You have to partnering with realtors is a sort of an important thing to do now. Realtors wanna have a piece of the action, be in the title business, but we have a great infrastructure and a good staff, and we built a great executive team. And so I've learned through the years, you don't mind hiring people that are smarter than you, and you picked up common sense. It wasn't, there's a lot of the financial things you don't quite understand, and but you just do the best you can with that, and but I think it's mainly just how you manage your people and finding good people and treating them the way you want to be treated, and which is almost like a religious thing, but that's how I treated it. And just be honest, and as you get older, you understand people a little more and who you want to deal with, or who's not up to speed, who's not what you think they are. You just learn a lot of things and about people. And as you get older, some of the things you can't remember anymore, some events and a lot of things, but a lot of the types of people they are, and how to react, and my instincts are always been pretty good. I think they still are for people or for businesses or something. It doesn't take long to make a decision. So we're not like a big company that draws out the decision. We're not big on meetings, at least tonight. Even doing an interview like today, it's been long enough for me, but it's just having good people around you, and then just admit what you don't know, be honest, and if you make a mistake, you just move on, do your best to fix it, and so your perceptions are important, how people view you, but you have to feel good about yourself for what you're trying to accomplish. At the end of the day, you did the best you could, so try to put it aside and start fresh the next day if it didn't work out too well. So I enjoy what I do. I enjoy working with younger people, and mostly I'm the oldest guy here, and even of our friends, our closest friends we hang out with, I'm usually the oldest guy. It's just kind of interesting. I don't know how that happened, but you just get people that accept you and you accept them, and you still got enough energy that you can do that. But you don't have enough energy to do all that maybe you would have done. So I don't have the energy to visit every office anymore, or night meetings and things, and it's just too much. You try to consolidate your day and stay extremely focused, but then you can be stressed on it too. But it is what it is. You sort of learn your limits, and sort of find people that can deal with your limits, that can help you, and staying abreast of a technology is difficult. So I'm constantly asking questions or getting stumped by things, but that's the nature of the game. So I don't know. So that was sort of a long diatribe. Last time I think we got into a couple other things, The city, Wisconsin, I feel, is a very challenging state. It's to do business in. It's challenging because it's not growing, and it doesn't have a good. Its leaders, they just don't work together. It's just like they won't even get on the same stage with each other or something. Well, and that's exactly what happens why the state is the way it is. It's just not a good focus, and even in the two groups, usually compromise is important, but sit down at the same table and you get a lot accomplished. I'm a big guy about growth. I think the country needs growth. We need more people. Not everybody wants to do all the different types of jobs, but some people don't think that's a good idea. And it's like, really, they pay taxes too. They're not all bad, but I can't believe it. I was just reading what one particular person said, who has a big following. Are you kidding me, really? I mean, the whole country was where the immigrants really started, but we need more people for a lot of the jobs. And that, it helps everybody, but the negative side is, yes, you might need more schools or infrastructure, but so I don't know. But I still would argue for growth all the time. I think we always see it. It spreads, just spread your expense. It's over more people, and it makes sense, doesn't it? But I don't know. That's too easy thinking to me. But so that's sort of unfortunate. That's just not in Wisconsin. That's like the whole country now. It's kind of crazy. But anyways, it's a challenge, and a lot of our competitors, Wisconsin, they don't really want to do business in Wisconsin. It's not because it's not the biggest growth area of the world, and but it's, although one of our competitors was just acquired by somebody, a larger title agent who had been acquired by an underwriter, which we were a little surprised about. So maybe, I don't know if it's because of us, that they were more aware of the state or what you can do, but we just work real hard and get to know the people in the different areas of the state and the many community, whether you're politically in line with these people or not, you still want to do business with them, so you got to figure out a way that you can do that, or at least try your best to do it. But it's very simple, just treating people with respect. And so I don't know, I don't wear my religion on my collar or something, and I respect somebody else or something. I don't really think that has really played a factor. And if it has, then you just don't associate with those people or something. You just don't. It doesn't. To heck with them. So.
Yeah. A few minutes ago you mentioned the two parties, and what's kind of unique about Milwaukee is the socialist mayors of the past. Do you remember anything about that and why everyone looked socialist?
I was here for Mayor Meyer. Yeah, used to be a socialist, whatever that means. It was like, it's sort of the forerunner of communism maybe, but it's taking care of people. So I think maybe that's one of the reasons Wisconsin or Milwaukee has been a higher tax state, because they paid better to people and they paid for benefits and pensions. But now those of us are saying maybe you paid a little too much, or you can't, or they made some bad decisions, in some respects terrible decisions with the pensions. I don't know if they really understood it or what they were doing. But gradually, you had, Milwaukee's always been a little bit different than the rest of the state. And I did meet Tom Barrett. I did know Tom Barrett, and when he was mayor or something, and he used to be a congressman. He was a nice man. He didn't, I don't know if he didn't focus enough, I don't think, on what he wanted to accomplish as much. He was just to me, he was just a nice guy, but he wasn't like a powerful leader or something. And now the leadership has graduated again, and you don't know what to make of it or something. As the population of the city has changed a bit, and but I think, again, I think there's been a lot of progress in making the downtown a better area to do business in, and people want to be downtown. And so it's sort of, it used to be, it wasn't the greatest place for a younger generation to hang out with or go to bars or restaurants, and now there's just a lot of different things. And the sports scene we talked about previously is that helps the whole state. I think that's in some ways that unites the state. Going to a Packer game or something, or Brewers, it does, again, nobody, but so that's been kind of cool. I always enjoyed that about that there was an emphasis on that here. You hope the UW teams would have been better. I saw when the Badgers lost, I think 3 years they lost every football game, and I went to the last game when they played Iowa. I don't know if that was the year I was graduating or not, and we beat Iowa. It was like, we had lost 20, 30 games in a row, and it was pretty exciting. I still have the ticket. I was looking at I kept the ticket to that game. So, but that's, now your expectations are a lot different. Even then they were, but for some reason it wasn't top of mind.
In the pre-interview, you talked about the Braves championship too.
That was a highlight for the community, and so were the Bucks too, I think. Mm-hmm. And it was very tragic for the city when the Braves left. They moved to Atlanta, somehow we survived, and the Bud Selig, you know, the fellow named Bud Selig, who I have met, he was in our restaurant, and I think my attorney has him for a client. He just was able to get a franchise put together somehow, and then, so that was, but he wanted it by where County Stadium was, where it is now, the location. A bunch of us thought it should come downtown, but he wanted to get the parking revenue, but whatever, but he got it put together, and you gotta hand it to him for that. But I think it hurt the city that they didn't go downtown, because that really would have helped the downtown and the surrounding areas, like other cities have done. It was a lot of fun. They had some really all-star people. It was a great team. I mean, you can't match that type of team anymore, I don't think. You can't pay them enough, and at the time it was just interesting owners and things. And the Bucks, when the Bucks won it all, yeah, I was there, and Marquette used to have some really good teams. A friend of mine's trying to make a movie about Al McGuire, the former Marquette coach. Right now, he asked my son to help. I guess they just had a fundraising meeting. I mean, there are a lot of I don't know, historic people. It was really cool people. It was, I mean, the fact we had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar here for 3 years was kind of cool. You knew he would move on, and you can't blame him. How can you? Why wouldn't you go to a bigger city with more opportunity? So I think that's a big part of the state. That's very important. This state offers a lot of, with its outdoor, lakes, and the golfing communities are pretty good. It's just we compete with the weather, which is tough. But I just saw some statistics. They finally enlarged the convention center, but it still wasn't as big as Indianapolis, St. Louis, but it was bigger than, I forgot how much they enlarged it. They just put that together. I think Beck's dad is going to an open house, I think. He told me tomorrow or the next day, which is good. I mean, that attracts people to the city. It's just good for business or for your promotion of the city and promotion of the state. So, but I think we've done well, but just because I say a lot of people don't realize Wisconsin and the title business is sort of a different business. It's not the most popular business in the world, and a lot of people don't understand it. Now it's, that's helped us. So if you're smart and stay with it and make the investments and know how to go after customers and retain customers and roll with the punches as the future moves on, it's been kind of fun. So what's going to happen next, I have no idea. I've often worried that we could be legislated out of business, or just because we depend a lot on government regulation or the rules. There's some rules right now going on that might eliminate one of our sources of revenue. It was proposed, so of course it's being fought. But anyways, I tried to be involved when I was younger doing some of the meetings, and now Beck's father's real involved in that, trying to fight for our side of the aisle, I guess. And but I think it's my real estate law background that I had, sort of that encouraged me. I had a good background to go into the title, but a lot of people don't understand the real estate side of it. They just look at it as a complete business. And but it's changing. So many companies are selling, and there's a lot of money out there looking for investments, but they don't really understand the business. So you don't know what's going to happen when you sell. I guess it's best to head for the hills, and because it might not bode well for the continuation of the business unless they can retain all the good people. But it's not, to me, so it's not just about the money. It's just you want to be fair to everybody and be as generous as you can, and develop, just develop a relationship with them that when you have people that work for you for 20, 30, 40 years or something, it's kind of cool. And it's not, whether that's going to happen with the present generation, I don't know. I won't be around that many years, but we have, like I say, if you can, I'll do my best to try to, if you have a good team, you don't want to lose it. You want to do whatever you can to keep it together. So you have to stay attuned to what's going on with competitors, what other pay is, what's going on with a person's family, and whatever. You just have to get to know them, and that's kind of fun of owning a business. So And I feel bad as I get older, you just don't have as much time to do that and get out to the various offices. There's some cool people, but, so you have to rely upon other people, so.
Yeah, going back a little bit, you talked about the restaurant. Why'd you guys choose Brady Street, and why Milwaukee in general?
Well, we were, I don't know, I guess we were just, my present wife, we've been together now, what is it, going on 28 years? You know, she moved up from Florida, so I guess, you know, and once her oldest son, Beck's dad, came up, you know, there was reason to stay here, even though the climate was what it was, and we moved to a condominium on Ogden Avenue called Astor Court, and so we were walking one day past Brady Street. I can't remember if she was or I was with her, and saw a for lease sign, and it was a former restaurant there named Cataldo's. So we just thought, well, that might be interesting. So then we looked into it because she was working in the restaurant industry her whole life. So we opened the business, and that's what was in Milwaukee, and we did sort of a seafood steakhouse with sort of a Key West influence. We enjoy Key West, Florida a lot. We go there, we've gone there every year like for 25 years. So, and then gradually we met all interesting people there too. It was sort of a, we call it a melting pot or whatever. You know, people from UWM, Joan Prince was, I think, the assistant UWM chancellor. There are people come in you really didn't even know personally, and afterwards you found out who was there. You know, but you just got lawyers, friends, it just, of all races, but it was just a nice class of people. It was like, we were like upscale casual, and had a good bartender, and we stayed sort of active. My wife more than me, but I would still go there almost every night. And, you know, you greet people, sit at the bar, where they're sitting at the bar standing or helping seat them. And so it turns out it was just convenient to do it here. And actually, even with the weather we have, you know, people come out in the winter, they want to do something. So that wasn't, you could have some good nights in the winter. I mean, during the weekdays. Milwaukee suffers from, it doesn't get the business crowd that other cities does. And that's why you need the convention center to bring in more business people that go out. I mean, the people, it's changed a bit now because no one wants to cook anymore. So the people will go out more often. But it's a little bit more difficult than some other cities, so that are more densely populated or are more active in the downtown. So, and we had different chefs, but eventually after 11 years, my wife thought it was time to hang it up, and she had an eye issue with macular degeneration, and thought maybe that's telling her maybe to take it easy. And we built up a wine list with a Wine Spectator Award. It was a lot of fun. And like I say, you met people, and I think that business and hospitality is great for you. You have to get along with people. You have to balance your checks, pay bills. It's a great precursor to other businesses or just getting along with people. So usually when we see somebody who is a bartender or something, even though you're looking for people with a lot of experience, but if that's on the resume that they even did a part-time, it's kind of cool because it means you have to balance out your bills. You had to deal with people. You had to, you know, change funds and something, and it was a great education. You know, I highly recommend it. But it's not easy, but being on your feet all the time, but you can make a good buck. So I don't know if that answers that question or not, but it worked out well. The location was just, we were close to it. We eventually put in valet parking, so we tried to treat people that cared about something like that. And then when we sold the business, they changed the whole concept. We thought for sure all they had to do is continuation with it and build upon it. Well, our clientele, they completely changed everything, cheapened it, and then that group went out, and then another fella came in who's still there, and he got rid of the valet parking. He got rid of one of the small plates and made it a darker atmosphere. People just, I don't understand it. Why would you you don't want to lose your clientele you had, like when you buy a business. The first thing is you want to do is retain your customers and then get new customers. Why would you, but I don't understand these people. It's crazy. So, whatever, that's what happened. It was like, too bad. People still come up to us and talk about the restaurant, you know, because we had nice food and it was a good experience. But anyways,
Do you think part of the like entrepreneurial spirit that you have comes from the furniture store in your early
I
life?
guess I always thought I would inherit the store or get involved with the store. So I just grew up that way. There's a lot of people in my religion, of all things, who are they're business people. So maybe it's changing a bit now, but they always were business people. They owned scrap and metal yards, they owned furniture stores, appliance stores. I think that was like, for some reason, that was like, it just, you inherited that type of atmosphere to do that. Other families, you know, it might have been to go in the Army or the Navy or something, and then if you're on the East Coast, go to West Point or one of the academies or something. Or if your dad was a doctor or a lawyer, it might have been differently. But, so yeah, I just sort of did that, and then I got involved with, I think the fraternity too, when you were made president, all of a sudden you're sort of in charge of this place, and then, and have to deal with others, and then, I always enjoyed investing in real estate, and boy, we did that. Formed a little partnership with two fellows and bought a 6-family apartment building, and then we traded up for a larger building and traded up, and finally, but partnerships I learned too aren't necessarily the way to go. They're dangerous. One person wanted out, we're doing maybe more work than somebody else, and I also ventured out to try the Dairy Queen business. I don't know if I talked about that, and had partners because you needed money, but having partners, it's just not the way to go, you know. So I appreciate my ex-wife is still partner for part of the business, but then we formed other entities to grow it, and that's worked out fine. But partners, it's just because you know them, they seem to change once you get involved with them or something, and so I've learned, but I didn't talk about, I don't think, the Dairy Queen business, but that was a lot of fun too. But it was a very tough business, and we had one store that really did well, and in Fond du Lac, it was a perfect community for a Dairy Queen. But when we sold it, the manager wanted to retire, and we thought when she goes, we go, because she was just doing such a nice job. So I had experience with that too, but I guess it was just, I didn't go to a class for entrepreneurship. Like I said, I didn't go to business school. You just sort of stumbled upon it, and then it was like, when I was practicing law, and then I dealt with a lot of different title companies, and you just got a chance to talk to people or watch them or see how they're doing, or are they living a nice life, or are they happy with what they do? And then I just thought it'd be an interesting business. And I didn't think I was gonna make a fortune on it, but I wasn't making that much practicing law, and it was just an interesting switchover. And somehow we figured out the financial end of it. But then we suffered through some tough times. We could have went out of business through some of the recessions. I still don't know how we got through some of those times. But we never missed a payroll, and somehow we always got through and paid the people and paid our bills and didn't go bankrupt or anything. And there were a couple of recessions right after I bought it. It was like, where nothing much was going on with real estate. But I think I had some help from the underwriters, and so I've learned how important a banking relationship is, or a credit relationship is. But it was very hard because I didn't have much assets, and but somehow, like in real estate too, we scraped up. They were buying apartment buildings scraped up the little money and learned to maybe sort of pyramid it or something by trading up and building your equity. That's fun, and you can do that in homes too. So I love real estate, and I also like investing in the stock market. It's kind of fun. It's a challenge. I'm not a gambler, but gambling in stock market is somewhat of a gamble because but you can do your studying, and it doesn't always work out, but it's just a lot of fun. So I think you should sort of, it's an important way to investing. Most people just rely upon somebody else and don't take an active interest in it. I try to take an active interest in it, which takes time, and you don't spend as much time as you should, but it's just, in the, but I think I always treated a business, you know, if you have good instincts and common sense, and when you bought it from someone else, I mean, you learned from them, and it was sort of a simple business, it wasn't that hard, where the income's coming in and what your expenses were. So it wasn't like you're making a product, I guess, a title insurance policy, or at the time we did abstracts and things, but you're not making something with a lot of different ingredients and different machinery, and I mean, things have really changed, you know. So, and you're not sure about the future, but we think we're still a necessary part to make deals happen in real estate, and we handle a lot of money transactions, transfer of funds. It's huge. So you have a lot of insurance, and you have to deal with fraud issues, and you know, you never know what's going to happen. Someone trying to hack into your accounts and things. So you try to learn about insurance, and but it's our industry. Maybe our size agency is unusual. There are not many agencies our size with 400 employees. Most of the smaller companies, they don't want to make the investments. They do these people do the day-to-day, so they can't see the big picture. So you get tired out too, and so that's why I think the advice I got to be an overseer right away, that was interesting advice, you know. So then you just try to, I mean, it was common sense to just go out and meet your customers, or try to figure out who the big players were in the real estate market, and get to know them, even if they didn't. Even if they didn't do business with you still want to know who they are and treat it with respect, and maybe you're their second choice. And it just takes a while, because you're the new kid on the block, and a lot of people don't like the new kid on the block, or they don't trust you, or they don't. There too, so you just, it just took a while. I'd say the pandemic was a surprise. That was, I mean, we've never seen that in the whole country. Hopefully, maybe we never do again, but that was like, turned out to be a windfall for business. We were so busy, everyone wanted a nice home, and now you're dealing with the remote worker issues. People didn't want to come in, and somehow we survived, and like I said, everyone wanted a nice home and lived at home, and somehow got the mortgages, or it was like, really, I thought we'd go out of business, no one would be able to do anything, go to the open houses. But it's just common sense a lot. It's like when we came up to Milwaukee, you learned who are the big real estate brokers, who would you like to do business with, and just, so you learned who they are, and you try to get an appointment or see them, and sometimes you struck out. You would strike out, but then they knew who you were, and you just, sometimes you get an opportunity, and you just plug away, and before you knew it, the people that maybe you struck out with, now they're sort of, it worked out that they're back at a company that does business with you, and now they're back, and it's just, that's kind of strange. But so it worked out pretty good. And sometimes, even if you failed to get the person, at least we tried. So that's been my experience. I think as companies get too big and have too many different avenues and divisions, it's real hard to manage. I don't know how they do it. I'm constantly amazed when you're going to voicemail systems of various companies, and you wonder, does the CEO ever try his own voicemail system? You know, are you kidding me? I mean, what are you doing? I mean, but I don't know. I don't think they do. You know, they rely upon so many people, and they have employed thousands of people, and it's just, you forget about the little stuff. You had to delegate it, but you can't, you know, you can't lose out on what the basics are. But so.
Well, one question was, you kind of talked about industry working. Was that very common, like friends, parents, like working in industries when you grew up, or just people that you knew, like around?
That was big in Milwaukee. I mean, I didn't hang out or live in those neighborhoods, or, you know, it was working class people, the south side of Milwaukee, and it was just tragic. So many jobs moved out of the state, and the company sold out, and I mean, Wauwatosa really wasn't. It was more of a professional atmosphere, I think, doctors or lawyers or service people. At least it seemed that way. we didn't, my parents didn't hang out with that type of person or something. Now, my wife's family had maybe more of that in her family on the East Coast. But for me, it was different, so I never was really exposed to that as much. Working in the warehouse, that was like working class people, I guess. But, well, I'm a working class person too, but it's just, you consider yourself maybe more of a professional. But, but I think that hurt Racine tremendously, and it hurt Milwaukee too. They never, they used to have the beer industry. It had Schlitz and Pabst and Platts, and what the hell happened? They sold out or closed their breweries, and there's so many breweries now around the world. Or Budweiser stayed together for a number of years in St. Louis, and finally those people sold out to somebody, and it just changes a bit, and it really hurts the community, the money and the local involvement. There was a company named Master Lock here, and maybe you've used one on a bike or something. They sold out, and we know the family. I know who they are. They made a lot of money, but nobody wanted to continue the business. And it was like, it was a good business. Now I like business, so for me, I would have liked to continue. It wasn't all about just collecting a check or something, but I don't know what, it's hard to figure out the philosophies. There have been a lot of entrepreneurs in the state, but for some reason, so many, it always bothered me in Wisconsin. It seems that there's more businesses being acquired than we're out acquiring the business out of state. And it drives me crazy, but a lot of people just want to grab the money and run, I guess, and maybe they don't have anyone in the family, or again, it's hard with partnerships and even with family members to run a business. They don't all agree, and everyone's wants something different, and how do you try to be fair to everybody? And when you see it working, it's unusual, I think, almost. But some of the wineries out in California, you can see the family did pass it on, and the daughters will be involved, but then some have just sold out. I think Joseph Phelps is a big winery. They just sold out to Louis Vuitton. It's just maybe there was and it's too bad. It was a great brand, a great piece of real estate, but it might be, and there might be tax reasons, might be estate tax reasons or something why you would sell it early or something. But I think entrepreneurship is so important. Not everyone can be an Amazon, or Amazon can't do everything, although they think they can do everything. And maybe they can almost do everything, but still I always like to root for the little guy. So that's not Amazon, but then you use Amazon, and it's a well-oiled machine. You can do so many different things so easily, and you wonder why isn't everybody like that? I still can't figure that out. Why CVS or Walgreens, why isn't their website as easy as Amazon? I don't get it. I just don't understand it. Why don't they hire the people that work at Amazon just to come and design my website and offer them whatever? It's just not that hard. I think Beck's dad and I would just go nuts. It should be, why wouldn't your experience be as easy? But they just can't seem to figure it out. But you can't run everything. You just sort of go on and, you just sort of bugs me. But I think we're not quite as big a business as we were, because we fluctuate with interest rates. So we were up to 600 people. But that's a bad part about our business. We can't control our destiny as much. It depends on the economy, which we can't control. So you have to manage the ups and downs. You have to manage the seasonality of managing, and how do you get through the payroll and the expenses in the winter when there's not as much business. But I've learned that even in places where the nicer climate, Florida, they still have a seasonality too. I learned that in the Dairy Queen business. When the kids go back to school, they're not as busy. So the summer is still the busiest month, and I guess when you look at a sales curve, so when you're trying, and those things you wish maybe you would have realized some of those things earlier, but you realize them when you realize them. So, but basically, I still enjoy what I do, and I've learned a lot from, people I work with, the younger generation, Craig's dad. If there's a problem, we'll deal with it. We don't, if there's a government's interfering with your business, well, we'll do what has to be done. A lot of people just want to say to hell with it. We'll just, okay, there's more paperwork reporting, we'll get it done and just do what you have to do. I mean, you're not gonna give up when you work so hard to get where you're at. So that's another one of our philosophies.
Well, I was just going to ask a little bit of a smaller thing, but you talked about representing the Kohl family.
Yeah.
Do you have any stories or things about that?
No, and I mean, it was like, I mean, you have to keep those transactions private and things, but it was interesting to be a part of that as they're developing the whole Northridge community, which now they've just demolished the shopping center, the big Northridge Lakes community. I think they had expectations for a nicer development, or that the development would always be popular, and the population has changed, and it's just, but you're part of Milwaukee. I mean, that's kind of how the city has changed in negative ways in some respects, but you just have to sort of have to move on when things like that happen. I think Milwaukee's a northern, what they call a northern city. It's a good-sized city, but the issues they face are a lot different than a lot of Phoenix faces, or Miami or something. There's so much growth. I mean, they still have crime and other things happening, but here I think, as you brought up with maybe the socialist background or whatever, but it's not just Milwaukee, I think it's all the northern cities. The unions, the higher wages, and that maybe contributed to driving businesses to Mexico or to China, or to close down a lot of different businesses with the cost structure. That's affected them, and they're older cities, so the infrastructure of the streets and the utilities, and it just seems there's more that has to be done that gets up being deferred. So somebody's got to pay the bill, and then you have the problems with education, and it's just hard to, some of this, there's just some big expenses, but it's still, could it be managed better? Sure, but again, people have to work together, and it's just like, some people just don't like other people, and they don't want to help it, and just, I really think, Milwaukee's been picked on, that they don't, certain legislators just don't want to help it, and even though they're getting so much revenue from it. But now that doesn't help Milwaukee, but maybe money wasn't well spent in some respects, but so then they try to take control over certain areas, but then the local people really have to be sort of in control. It's hard to manage something from afar that you're really not there every day, and that's another problem. There's just so many different issues like that. Or why would you want to? If you're up in Madison, why would you want to manage the school system down here? My God, that's like, there's stuff I'm sure going on, problems every day you have to deal with. It's just hard. It's just hard to find good people and enough people, and some things in life are just getting crazy, but.
I have one more question I've
Yeah.
been wondering. Did you ever go to any Braves or Bucks games back when they won?
Yeah.
And what were do you remember ticket prices or pricing to get in compared to
Well,
nowadays?
it wasn't as bad as it is now. I mean,
Yeah.
you could afford to go. Now it's like you wait to be treated by a company or something. I won't even pay it. It's like ridiculous. Yeah, but I mean, it was like, I remember Michael Jordan, games where the Bucks played the Bulls with Michael Jordan. I'll never forget some of those games. I mean, Michael Jordan was friggin' amazing. I mean, he made game-winning shots, and it was like, damn, I'll never forget. I can't remember what game it was when we lost to the Bulls. It was a big game, and sure, he made the he made the last shot at the buzzers. I mean, the guy was, so you saw some really heroes like that. And for the Braves, that was a long time ago. And the Bucks, Kareem, yeah, I mean, these are people that are classics in the industry. But those are the ones that come to mind right away. Now I don't know of the present players in the NBA. Well, Giannis is good, and LeBron, but when he wasn't around with Michael Jordan was, he had to be the best player I've ever seen, and that had to be the best coach team, the Bulls. The Bulls team was amazing, and it was just, and people would say Phil Jackson, you can't believe it with this triangle offense, but damn, that was a good team. So that was just a lot of fun to see teams like that play. The Packers never did that well it took a long time now, but then they finally think when Mike Holmgren came in, they started to start doing better, and then McCarthy, and when they got Brett Favre and things, that was fun. We had some Packers come into our restaurant. I think we had Michael Redd come in from the Bucks. And the Bucks too didn't do well either. But what are you going to do? You're a smaller city competing. It's really hard. And the Brewers now, it's hard to get into the Brewers because no player stays with a team long enough that you can get into it. Maybe this guy Yelich or is there, but then he's never quite as good after you give him the long-term contract. And then they had this other guy, I can't remember. They gave him a huge contract. And he was always hurt. Remember that guy? Who was that? He's not there anymore. I think they finally bought it out. You see these, it's just really hard when a smaller team makes a mistake like that. That really hurts. But so the sports, sports has been, spectatorship has always been a big part of the city, and it unites the city, and you forget about other things, and it's really good. So I think that's really important. And a lot of bigger cities don't have all that. So I wish we had a hockey team too, because that could be a lot of fun. So we'll see, like with this movie with Al McGuire or something, and some of the. I wish my memories are so terrible, but the Bucks, that was a lot of fun. I can't remember like who were all the Bucks players when we played them now. I mean, you'd have to look it up or something. But now with the Bulls, that was just the whole team, every position. You knew all of Bill Cartwright and the guy in the. It was just the crazy dude that played forward, and Dennis Rodman. I mean, but somehow here's a guy who was able to manage them, and they somehow worked as a team together. Now you don't see that.
Last question, I promise. It's a short one. You talked about the Bulls, and nowadays we see Chicago and Milwaukee. They hate each other. Did you see more people when Michael Jordan was there cheering for him than like rooting against him?
Oh yeah, it was terrible because all the Bulls fans would come up here. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, well even the Bucks. If you were a Milwaukee fan, you'd be cheering. So, but it was just absolutely. That still happens to some extent. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there used to be the Cubs. I don't know if it's still that way. A lot of Cubs fans would come up, and well, I mean, when the Bears with Mike Ditka, those are classic personalities, classic people, classic teams, so it's hard to find that as much now, it's just the world has changed, and the type of people have changed, and then with the transfer portal now and the college sports, and it's just changing a lot, not necessarily for the better, but it is what it is, so.
All right, I think that's it.
Anything else?
No.
No, but I mean, you guys, I appreciate what you're doing. There's still a lot of good people, so you can't get too down on stuff that you disagree with, or younger or old or whatever. There's still a lot of good people that want to do the right thing. You just have to sort of figure out who they are and hang with them and just try to have a rapport with them, I guess.